A very good day, everyone. This is Daniele Catteddu, and I'm the Chief Technology Officer at the Cloud Security Alliance and the co-founder of the STAR program. Today, I'm here for answering with you the question if we can trust the GenAI services. The way in which I'm going to answer this question is not by a direct answer. Rather, are going to show you what CSA is doing in order to build an approach that eventually is going to be used to measure the trustworthiness of GenAI services. And I will do that by making a parallel between the situation that we faced with cloud computing 20 years ago and the situation right now, identifying some commonalities and some differences, and explaining why CSA decided to build on the experience that we gained during the STAR experience for cloud, and to put that at the service for this new journey. Now, let's back to the main question. Can I trust GenAI services and their providers? Certainly, I would say that this is a legitimate question, since we are facing a technology that has the potential to really revolutionize our life. And I bet that policymakers and regulators are certainly dealing with similar concerns. On the other end, the AI service providers are asking themselves on how they can be trusted by the customers, by the policymakers, by the regulators, and ultimately how they can be trusted by all the market actors. Now, when we talk about trustworthy GenAI services, what do we mean exactly? So for our purpose, we define trustworthy GenAI services as the ones that are committed to serving humanity responsibly and ethically via safe technology. And I feel the urge to repeat myself, serving humanity responsibly and ethically via safe technologies. That done via a system that is robust, is resilient, is reliable, explainable, controllable, transparent, accountable, that protects our privacy, fostering fairness, and at the same time, of course, complies with all the applicable laws and regulations. Now, as I mentioned, 20 years ago, for those of you that are old enough to remember that, we faced a similar situation, and back then the question was, can I trust cloud computing? Now, this is certainly a typical situation where there is a paradigm shift. And in this case with cloud, the shift was mainly in terms of technological and business model. A substantial change that someone started to call the someone else computer syndrome. Now, that syndrome had two relevant effects. From one side, the introduction of the shared responsibility model. So as we all know, the attribution of the responsibilities for security alongside the complex supply chain of the cloud services. From the other side, introduced the distinction, which is already exists, but made it clear that distinction between the concept of responsibility from one side and accountability from the other side. Famously, the Data Protection Commissioner Billy Oakes for the Irish Data Protection Authority back then said, you can outsource responsibilities, but you can never be able to outsource accountability. Now, in that challenges over the concept of shared responsibilities and accountability, we have seen a lot of governance issues coming up within the cloud, and some of those challenges are still present today. The other big obsession was about where is my data? Now, clearly, back in the early days of cloud, that was not an absence, it was certainly a very relevant issue. We need to account for the fact that the paradigm shift that I was referring to before with entailed that the servers that back then were sitting under our desk moved somewhere else in the cloud. So we went from direct governance and direct control over our infrastructure to a more indirect control and governance. not anymore our hands on the command line, but rather managing services through SLAs and through contract. A very big change from the governance perspective. And again, it took some time before people could accommodate to the new approach. Talking about that space, another obsession there, another nightmare has been also on now now to integrate the new services into the existing infrastructure, try to go for an hybrid approach versus moving completely towards a cloud native approach. But specifically on the SaaS governance, we started to see a proliferation of services there, and it became more and more difficult for organizations to manage effectively and efficiently the plethora of SaaS application within our organizations. And then again, as I was referring to these big questions around acceptance, about integration, about cultural change, the dilemma between public cloud versus private, hybrid cloud versus and multi-cloud, and very often the question between lift and shift and cloud native. Now, all of that in a rather complex and confusing legal and regulatory landscape. Which is somewhat well described by the contentious relationship between US and Europe in the cloud space. If you recall the worries from the US administration over the introduction of the GDPR and the impact that GDPR could have had over the US companies operating in Europe. I recall back then, Brussels has possibly seen the largest wave of lobbyists ever seen and ever recorded in the history of the city. On the other hand, in the US Cloud Act had several impact on the European market and therefore the disputes on the other side. And in the middle, a number of discussion and national approaches to regulating cloud, which led to a plethora of regulation and over-regulation, if you like. And the market is still paying that price, given the inefficiencies and that we are encountering, especially in the compliance space. From the standard point of view, standard being the last of the important pillars that we considered in our analysis, we went for cloud from a situation of scarcity. The early days were very much trying to retrofit existing standard to the cloud case, to an overabundance of standards. Over time, in addition to the more classical standardization organization, so the SDO, we have seen a number of smaller entities, including also CSA, that started to produce framework and best practices and standards to support the industry. The end result, though, has been that, especially in the space of assurance, we have seen this proliferation of scheme and thus the problem with the compliance fatigue I was referring to a second ago. Now, from the AI perspective, the situation is not, it's very similar in many ways, even though with some very substantial distinctions. Certainly with cloud, we have seen a change in the business and technological paradigm. With cloud, it seems as if that shift is going to be much more profound. That change is going to be much more profound and having a more substantial impact over our society. And it seems that we could be moving from the someone else computer syndrome to the someone else brain syndrome. A situation where we could end up on over relying from the AI oracle, which is certainly a situation we would like to avoid. But similarly to what has happened in the cloud, in AI, we see the same confusion, if you like, concerning the governance of the data and of the services, except that the new obsessions, the new paranoias, the new syndromes are about who is using my data for training, for instance. It's not anymore where is my data. Hopefully we address or partially address that. And now the war is about who is using my data in order to train the various models. Not only that, but also how I can prevent errors, abuses, and unwanted uses, knowing that we are dealing with a technology with an enormous potential. There is also the need to understanding how to recognize what is real from what is fake, what is deep fake, what is human from what is AI generated, which is not an irrelevant question, as we will see, I guess, in the future, especially when it comes to IP and IP rights. But also the risk of shadow AI, similarly to what we have seen with shadow IT in the cloud. I'm just coming back from a private banking event where I was presenting on a similar topic, and the institution was sharing their approach to GenAI. In their case, they are completely blocking the use of public AI and building their own internal solutions, which will be the technology then the people within the organization can use. A legitimate choice for sure, except that I will be curious to figure out what is going to happen in the interim between now and when the internal solution is going to be ready, and what is the real risk for shadow AI in use. And from there, evil chatbot, soon to become, with the advancement that we have seen lately with agent, evil agent, and so on and so forth. Now, in this specific context, of course, there are those organizations, those individuals which are enthusiastically embracing the new technology. There are those who are somewhat more reluctant, those who are not willing to introduce GenAI, and those that are in complete denial. A sort of perpetual should I stay or should I go? So the same old school human resistance to change. And in this context, the legal and regulatory landscape it's very tough. It's definitely very tough. From one side, there is a group of people and experts that are saying, well, it's too early to regulate. This is going to stiff the innovation, is going to generate problems. It's definitely not the right moment in time. And those, on the other hand, that feel the urge to introduce very early principle-based regulations in order to drive this difficult journey towards super intelligence. Now, one thing is for sure that we have seen a race and a level of complexity in the policy space that possibly we haven't seen since the nuclear race. And not willing to introduce any reference to history that might create some adversarial mindset, but certainly as we are on our journey to support and define superintelligence, we would want to be aware of the potential disruptive capabilities of the technology we are dealing with. Now, with that in mind, and back to the laws and regulation, from one side we got countries like China, we got the European Union, we got Brazil that have already introduced their own regulation. For instance, the European Union, that I know being the closest to me, have issued the AI Act, which is, from my perspective, a good compromise between innovation, accountability, and safety. On the other side of the spectrum, we got countries like US, which at this point seem to be very likely to go towards the path of self-regulation. And in the middle, all the other countries that are still in the process of understanding what are going to be the rules and the principles that are going to guide the introduction of GenAI technologies within our society. In the background, there is certainly a fear battle within the research community between those that are saying that we need to slow down or even stop until we have a credible solution to the alignment problem, versus those like Kuhn, Kurzweil, or even Altman that are more that are supporter of the idea that we need an early introduction of the technology in the market in order to make sure that we are building a society that is AI aware and that it can grow with the growing on the technology and reap the full benefit of it. I don't have certainly an answer to all that, but certainly the complexity remains. From the standardization point of view, we are very much still in the infancy, as in we are currently building the taxonomies, the vocabularies that we are going to use to understand each other. What we can certainly anticipate is that there's going to be a tension between the classical approach to standardization, which is necessarily time-consuming, given the fact that it has to be consensus-based, and the speed of evolution of the GenAI market, which is pushing new services on a dramatic pace. Someone could certainly characterize the situation as a bit chaotic, and what we start hearing from our constituency, from our community, it was first like a soft voice, then a growing voice, and then over time it became a scream. And that voice, he was telling us that the community need a way to control GenAI services and to govern its cybersecurity. In other terms, our community needs a reliable mechanism to measure trustworthiness. Now, the way in which we decided to go about the request that we have received, it was to build on the experience and the know-how that we have generated with cloud computing, and using the same principle, tips, and tricks that we used back then, in order to be able to offer something that would be solid, robust, and understandable and measurable to our market. Now, the reason why I've been doing this parallel between cloud and AI is because, as I mentioned, there are several commonalities there. Three areas where I would like to draw your attention in particular are the one of the layer model that exists both in the cloud and in GenAI. So we move from the IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS approach for cloud into a infrastructure/cloud model, orchestrated services and application, with this parallel between the orchestrated services and the PaaS in the middleware. The second area of commonality, as I was hinting before, is the shared responsibility model. We firmly believe that all the experience that we have acquired within the cloud space with the shared responsibility model is going to be extremely useful, because we are going to see a similar approach to the allocation of responsibility in AI. And then finally, the transition from a framework that is AI centric, cloud centric, towards AI, which it tells a lot over the fact that as we are approaching AI security, we are not throwing out of the window all the good lessons learned from the past. The experience and the basic principle of cybersecurity that we have been using so far are entirely applicable to AI, with, of course, some tailoring and customization. Now, as I mentioned, we started to build something that it would address the problem of trustworthiness of AI services, and that little something is the STAR for AI program. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with the CSA STAR program, STAR is the acronym of Security, Trust, Assurance, and Risk. And this is the program that CSA has founded to address assurance, governance, and compliance in the cloud initially. Cloud was the initial scope of reference for us. The idea behind STAR for AI is to, again, use that experience and to put it at the service of the new scheme. To summarize what STAR for AI is, certainly it's a program for GenAI assurance and trustworthiness. Our focus is going to be on multimodal GenAI services. And we are going to consider the overall value chain of an AI service. So we are going to consider the foundational infrastructure, the processing infrastructure, the model, the orchestrated services, and the AI application. And the work will aim to satisfy the needs of three main categories of stakeholders, which are the model owners, the developers and providers of value-added services, and then finally the business user of the AI services. The focus will be, as it used to be for cloud, on both technical and governance aspects related to security, except that in this case we are going to make an extension including also transparency and accountability that were already part of the STAR for Cloud, but we are going to look also into the parameters of explainability. The audit evaluation will be certainly risk-based, and there the risk-based approach we hope is going to guarantee the flexibility that we need in order to address different contexts and different use cases. The idea is to use existing standards, like for instance ISO 42001, that are specific to AI, as well as other known AI specific standards like 27001, in order to have a solid foundation that we can customize in order to better fit the GenAI service case. And we are going to look both into point in time and continuous auditing. Now, the components of the STAR for AI program. I think we got in there what you can expect. So a control framework, a list of controls that are going to be used in order to assess a certain solution, a certain service, a certification scheme, including also the authorization of the auditors and their the evaluation of their competencies, a transparency registry, which already exists, our STAR program, technology to enable the approach whenever and that is required. For instance, I'm thinking about the adoption of AI auditors, and finally a governance structure that is going to have an oversight over the program. In terms of tentative roadmap, the first step is the release of the AI control framework, which we are planning to do in Q2 of 2025. After that, the launch of Trustworthy AI Pledge, stay tuned for that. And then during the course of the 2025, we're going to define the certification scheme, we're going to start authorizing auditors, and then finally at the beginning of next year, we are planning to make available the first version of the STAR for AI with a self-assessment to be followed later by a third-party certification and then additional solutions. The first step, as you have seen, is the release of the AI control metrics. Now, the AI control metrics is what you can expect from it. It's a framework. It's a control framework developed as normally happens within Cloud Security Alliance by a working group, the AI controls working group, which include representatives from industry, from academia, from governmental institutions, as well as independent subject matter experts. We built the AI control matrix over the foundation of the cloud control matrix. I was mentioning that earlier on. We are firm believers of the fact that what most of the security, as we know it so far, is going to be applicable also to GenAI. So from that perspective, it felt natural to use CCM as a foundation. And then, as always, in the spirit of the Cloud Security Alliance, the framework is going to be open, it's going to be expert-driven, consensus-based, and vendor agnostic. In terms of components, so first of all, you need to take into account that as we approached the creation of the AI control framework, we didn't use any revolutionary approach. On the contrary, we built on the lesson learned with Cloud Control Matrix, based on our experience, in order to build a new framework that it would be relevant for the new scenarios in GenAI. The approach has been pretty straightforward. We built first a vocabulary, a taxonomy, in order to be able to communicate with each other again. Then we started to build some threat scenarios, and then we identified those controls that would be fit for purpose for mitigating those threats. And the result of it is the AI control framework, which is composed by the components that I'm listing here in this slide. So we got a taxonomy, which has been already released and published, control objectives, which are currently under peer review, a control matrix with definition of relevance, applicability, which is as well in peer review, and then soon to be released we are going to see the mappings, the threat scenarios, the implementation and the auditing guidelines, and then finally the questionnaires. This is the structure of the AI control matrix. 18 domains, 242 controls. For those of you that are familiar with the cloud control matrix, CCM has 17 domains. So the new domain is model security, and the other small change in the structure compared to CCM is that the infrastructure and virtualization security domain of CCM has been changed into infrastructure security. From the control perspective, 242, of which 37 are purely AI-specific controls. 193 are applicable and relevant to both AI and cloud, and then 22 of them are just cloud controls. And at this point, I would really like to make my first call for action. So if you care about AI service trustworthiness, or if you are an SME, you should definitely review the AI control metrics, and you should make your contribution to try to improve it. Now, the other large and fundamental component for an assurance scheme is certainly the set of conformity assessment mechanism. So the approach that we're going to take in order to evaluate the controls that we establish within the AI control matrix. This effort has already started. We are working with our community not only to addressing this problem, but also looking into the impact of AI on auditing and what is going to be the future of auditing, of our AI-driven auditing future. The approaches that we are taking from the conformity assessment perspective are the ones that I briefly mentioned earlier on. So we are going to include a self-assessment, a third-party audit, a continuous control monitoring and auditing, and then finally we are going to use the support of GenAI tool in order to support either the existing approach to verification or to build new ones. And here my second call for action. So I would really invite you to be a thought leader and to contribute, because we are shaping the future of assurance. So please make an effort, connect with us, and make your contribution to STAR, to our initiative CAR, that it will be introduced during this conference, and the AI Safety Initiative. I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that we are literally defining the standard that will design the boundaries of and the auditing mechanism for GenAI. And being a contributor, an author of those mechanisms and system, I guess will give your name to as a legacy for history. Now, in conclusion, we see a growing urgency to establish a reliable compliance mechanism. We see certainly a lot of commonalities between the cloud computing case and the GenAI case. We see, though, very challenging intersections with broader ethical consideration of complex technology. At the same time, we know that GenAI services are already used and sometimes already embedded in our organization and in our personal lives. And we are increasingly becoming dependent on autonomous decision-making tools, and soon these autonomous decision-making tools will be used for auditing just as well. And we might end up in a sort of paradoxical situation where we might start depending on AI technologies to evaluate their own trustworthiness, even before we have established a mechanism reliable enough to measure that level of trustworthiness. Now, I'm not call for panic here, but certainly there is a need and an urge to start developing a mechanism to defining trust in GenAI, and we are going to be within the stakeholders that are going to drive this discussion, and so please contribute and help us out in our effort. And with that, I would like to thank you all. Unfortunately, I won't be able to take any questions, and I wish you a great continuation of the event.